listeners, my name is Stephen Reiff, and I'm live from the Hub Culture Studio here in Davos, and I'm joined by the CEO of Handshake, JR Kerr, and I can attest that he does practice what he preaches. He has an amazing handshake. So thank you so much for joining us today. So first, tell me a little bit more about your business. Tell us about Handshake, how it got started, and how you serve your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said to you before, as an entrepreneur, it really got started because I wanted to survive. Right, which I think is the great essence of anybody that starts something from nothing. So I think it started ultimately though because I have been convinced for my whole life that if you're going to have a calling and do something of consequence in the world, it shouldn't be consequential just for you, it should be consequential for other people as well. Okay. Right? And I think that if we went back to that idea from the foundations of Western society and then played that out for not just individuals, but for large organizations, and in particular the private sector, I think business would get done different. And so we essentially started Handshake because we thought business could in fact be done better.
Okay, so just like I'm trying to figure out my calling, what I want to do in my career, you're doing that for businesses.
For businesses, right? So every business solves a problem. Every single business starts by solving a problem. Yeah. So for example, we've got clients that are infrastructure companies, or we've got clients that are finance companies. Those businesses exist. So one of the companies that we work with right now exists to build like the basic foundation for society, roads, bridges, ports, right? We've got a finance company that finances roads, bridges, and ports, and then they provide a very modest standard return over the course of many years. But if we could take those business models, identify problems that are like facing the world all over the place, by the way, in developed and developing countries, all of a sudden, those businesses get done better, and then if you tell that story to their customers, to the people that work at those companies, to the people that are thinking about working at those companies, it completely changes the model. So we sort of saw a space, we filled it, and now we get to do great work with great clients.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
So tell me a little bit of an example. So infrastructure company or recent clients, so walk us through the problem and the question that they are facing and how you help them and the results.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, infrastructure is society building. That's what infrastructure is. Society building is always about two things. It's about meeting human need and then creating the ability for businesses, non-for-profits, and governments to scale, right? To offer those goods and services that as human need gets met, those human needs change, grow, become more sophisticated, right? Make sense? So one of the most basic human needs that we face in the world today, and I think the most precious natural resource, maybe even resource in general, is water. But people completely underestimate the role of water in infrastructure building. So we actually have a piece of software that's an influence mapping tool. So we can literally basically run this tool. We can identify, here's how water is in crisis around the world. Here's how it's affecting your business model. Here's where your business is growing because of it. Here's where your business is suffering because of it. Here's where your competitors are in fact actually taking advantage of access to water or using their business to create access to water and therefore building more business. And then here's partners that could help you grow. So once we do that map, then what we actually do is we create everything from product innovation that helps them think about how their products change, to campaigns, to showing up at Davos and saying, hey, we believe the future of infrastructure is in fact water. And so if we don't start to take seriously both the reality of access to water, conservation of water, but the way that we use water when we build societies, our world might in fact be in peril. And then what happens for that infrastructure company is they're not just doing business for themselves, they're creating room for the entire industry. People see infrastructure differently. And when you're the company that does that, it changes everything. Okay. Right?
Yep, makes sense. One of the things that we've been learning about in Davos is trust, and how trust in public institutions is at an all-time low, but that trust in businesses is starting to come up. And Handshake, you described it to me earlier as a reputation management firm. And do you have any thoughts about kind of why trust in businesses is starting to increase a little bit more?
Sure. I think I'd answer the question in two ways. First, I mean, like history is cyclical. One of the big mistakes I think we consistently make is we forget that history does in fact repeat itself. And what we see, if you look at like the cycle of time, is that we basically as human beings change in terms of who we're trusting based on who screwed up most recently, right? Truly, like essentially, like if coming out of the crisis in 2008, trust in business was at an all-time low because we saw what happens when human beings decide not to put society first, decide to put themselves first, and then all of a sudden society's in peril, right? The same thing I think is happening in government right now. Government has at least, and I will say I'm only going to speak for my government. I'm not an expert in government, so I'm not going to say why I think all governments are trusted. I think that most recently, government just seems to be putting themselves first. And it's tragic, actually. These are good people, right? So what I think has now happened is people are realizing, wait a second, okay, so if I can't trust these ladies and gentlemen over here, can I trust these ladies and gentlemen? And I think business has, they've done a good thing in that they've stepped in and they've started to really take advantage of, in a healthy way, wait, we have a role to play in society building. We should maybe take that more seriously. And I think Davos, even though you have the Davos man, there's been some more Davos women that have shown up. And maybe they're teaching us how to think differently about our business and the role we play in fact, building society. So I think that's why trust is growing a bit in business.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, thanks so much, JR.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.